With Donald Trump now a lame duck president, political observers have wondered whether his coveted endorsements would continue being a golden ticket to victory in Republican primaries. They have, and the Republican Party continues to be largely purged of even Trump's mildest critics, such as Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie and Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy. This movement even further to the right at the behest of an enthusiastic conservative base sets up a clear conflict coming in November, where independents, among whom Trump is increasingly unpopular, will determine control of Congress. Such dissonance raises a critical question for the Republican Party. In swing states in 2026, does statewide electability or all-in support for Trump matter more among primary voters? Ground zero for this test is Georgia, where a June 16th primary runoff will determine the victor of Republican battles for the nomination for senator and governor. Georgia's Senate race has arguably the highest profile of the 2026 cycle. Trump carried the state by 2% in the 2024 election, suggesting the seat is Republicans' easiest target on the map in November. However, incumbent Democrat Jon Ossoff is charismatic, widely popular, and has even been floated as a potential presidential candidate in 2028. On top of that, a Trump-endorsed Republican failed to capture a Georgia Senate seat back in 2022, when the national environment heavily favored the GOP. To beat Ossoff, especially with the party facing nationwide headwinds this time around, it's no secret that the Republican nominee will require broad appeal. Enter the two candidates, Congressman Mike Collins, who placed first back in May with 40% of the vote, and former Tennessee Volunteers football coach Derek Dooley, who placed second with 30%. Trump has surprisingly stayed on the sidelines for this contest, but the candidate's relationship with him still looms large. Collins has emphasized his strongly pro-Trump voting record and support for the president's hardline immigration policies on the campaign trail. Meanwhile, Dooley has touted the endorsement of Governor Brian Kemp, who is possibly the most broadly popular Republican in the state, but has had scuffles with Trump in the past. Thus, despite the lack of a Trump endorsement, the race has still evolved to be a clash of Collins' loyalty to Trump versus Dooley's electability. However, the most telling aspect of the runoff may be the candidate who failed to qualify, Congressman Buddy Carter, who only mustered 25% of the vote back in May. Carter was the candidate who most heavily leaned on complete and total support for Trump, with his campaign website eschewing any specific policy but proudly displaying Carter's status as a, quote, MAGA warrior, end quote. So, no matter which of Collins and Dooley emerges victorious, Georgia Republicans will have made clear that they seek a candidate with broader appeal than the most extreme wing of the party. Georgia's gubernatorial election will offer a more direct look at the power of a Trump endorsement in swing state politics. Trump's preferred candidate, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, took first place in round one over his opponent, the billionaire Rick Jackson. However, the runoff is shaping up to be close, as 30% of first-round voters are now up for grabs after their preferred candidates failed to qualify for the runoff, a figure dwarfing Jones's 6-point margin of victory. Trump joined Jones for a May 7th tele-rally, where he praised the lieutenant governor's conservative record, business background, and long-standing support for the president himself, calling Jones, quote, outstanding and, quote, real quality. But Jackson is using populist rhetoric to harness voter grievances, with a pitch based on affordability and accusations that Jones is part of the corrupt political elite class. The race has become a choice between Jones's message of allegiance to Trump and Jackson's message of broad appeal based on economic issues and an outsider persona, though whether one candidate is more electable than the other does not appear to be immediately clear. Once again, however, the candidate who placed third is telling of the political environment. Brad Raffensperger, another official who has classed with Trump in the past, who earned only 15% of the vote. Thus, just as Carter's defeat showed an unwillingness by Republicans to indulge in their most extreme conservative candidates, the rejection of Raffensperger shows they still largely resist true moderates, even in a swing state. Donald Trump has guided the Republican Party for a decade, and his support among the conservative base has driven significant victories for himself, but often produced state-level Republican nominees too extreme for the average voter to support. Now, with the Trump era approaching its end, Georgia's results will show us whether Republicans can shake Trump's influence when needed, or if the party is set to remain in the palm of his hand, possibly to their own detriment, for the foreseeable future.